Hey everyone, Amar here. In this video, we're going to be talking about the power of self-observation, why this is one of the most powerful transformation tools out there. I want to explain what this is, how you can do this, and what you can expect. What sort of results will you get from practicing this? You may have noticed I'm wearing a hat today. So I live in England, and England is starting to get pretty cold, and it's just middle of September. So if you live here or you've been here, you'll know what I mean. Summer is officially over for us, so I'm just trying to keep myself warm. But without further ado, let's get into this video. So the power of self-observation. So you're probably familiar with this. You've probably heard this before. This technique to observe yourself, right? It's so simple. It probably sounds too simple, right? But when you've been practicing this for a short while, you begin to feel and really see just the power of this simple practice, right? That everyone can do. There's no cost attached to it. It's free. And if you can get into this and really get a feel for it and see how it works, you're going to change quite rapidly. I mean it, to the point where it's going to scare you, which I'll come back to at the end of the video. So what is self-observation? Self-observation is just observing ourselves, right? You're just watching yourself. Now, we've got so much stuff going on. We've got so many unconscious patterns that we can't watch it all. Unless you've got some God level of consciousness, you're not going to be able to watch everything, right? There's so many unconscious processes going on every second, right? So we've got to start with where we're at. And I would suggest you pick one thing that you're going to observe about yourself. Just one simple thing. Start obviously with something that you're struggling with, right? Maybe it's something like anxiety, or you've got some kind of negative trigger or impulse, some sort of jealousy or anger or resentment, or maybe you get a bit depressed sometimes or whatever, right? Just choose one thing, right? One negative thing that you tend to experience regularly, right? And you're just going to pay attention to that thing. You're going to get very interested in that one thing. So I would suggest, if you're serious about this, is that you start to journal about it. Choose that one thing, write it down. I'm going to observe this one thing about myself. That's it, just this one thing. If you don't feel like you want to face the big stuff, like maybe you've got bad anxiety, choose something smaller, right? Because it's about learning and training ourselves to use the technique. So don't overwhelm yourself by picking something huge that's just going to overwhelm you, because that defeats the purpose. So choose just one thing, some negative trait or pattern that you've got, and write it down. You're going to observe this about yourself. As soon as you start to make that conscious decision that you're going to start paying attention to this, naturally, a lot of your intelligence is going to start to see more of it, right? Especially if you take it seriously and you start to journal about the new insights that you have, right? You're just bringing more awareness to it. So initially, we only become aware of our patterns when they're at the surface of our consciousness, right? So let's use that jealousy example. Say you get jealous occasionally. You're only aware of that jealousy when you get triggered, right? And it's there right in front of your consciousness. You're not aware, or you probably have no idea if that jealousy is in the background during other experiences, right? Maybe you don't think you're feeling jealous in certain other experiences, but as you begin to start bringing more awareness to this pattern, you might start to see, okay, sometimes I feel this when I'm watching TV, but it might be so subtle that it's bypassing your awareness, right? Or maybe you feel it when you're around a certain person and you've never really acknowledged it before. So the point I'm trying to make is, when we bring more awareness to these patterns, we start to see them on the micro level, right? And it's on the micro level that we can really start to create change. Because, like I've said, most of us only become aware of our patterns when they're really at the surface of our consciousness and we're really triggered or we're really feeling it, right? But we can't work with it on that level. It's too much. Unless, like I said, you've got some God level of consciousness, it's going to overwhelm you, because the pattern's just so deeply ingrained in you, psychologically, emotionally, energetically, on all levels, that you can't you've got no power there. But when you start to observe it and you get very interested in it, and you start to see it on a micro level, that's where we can work with it. That's where it's manageable, right? So as you begin to see these patterns more regularly, especially on the micro level, you can actually work with it easier. So you can actually start to let them go or do some sort of meditation to release it on the micro level, right? And then it'll naturally reduce on the macro level, right? We fix things on the micro. I think the kind of culture we live in now, and especially the whole self-development, even the spiritual niche, we want to change the big things, right? We think, okay, I want to change my anxiety, but you don't understand that it's too much to deal with. By dealing with the micro, we're going closer to the core of the problem, right? It's manifesting itself in these small things, which keeps bypassing our awareness, and them small things become the big things, right? And that's what overwhelms us. But through this practice of self-observation and seeing it in the micro things, in the little things, let me give you another example. Maybe you're an anxious person, socially anxious, but then you start to observe this about yourself and you start to recognize, okay, maybe I feel a little bit of anxious just when I'm outside, right? Maybe, or maybe you feel a little bit of anxiety if you're even around some family members that you weren't aware of before. The point is, the more you observe it, the more you'll start to see it on the micro levels. And from there, we can work with it. Eventually, like I said, you can start to release them on that level and you get shifts on the macro level. But there's some important insights that I want to share with you about this practice. And it's not going to make sense. Logically, this is going to make zero sense. It still doesn't make much sense to me, but it's what I've experienced. You're not going to want to let some of this stuff go, as crazy as that sounds. As much suffering this pattern or program causes you, subconsciously, you don't want to let it go. You're clinging to it. Again, I know this makes no logical sense. Logically, you're just thinking, I want rid of it. You might not even believe what I'm saying. What I'm telling you is that you're unconsciously holding on to it for some reason. This is what you're going to realize. And when it comes to letting it go, you're going to resist it. It's such an eye-opening experience to see that I'm consciously holding on to my suffering. I'm actually creating it. And with that comes a great responsibility, because you also understand, if I really wanted to, I could let it go. But if you let it go, you're not going to know who you are anymore. And that's a big fear. So you'll also experience some fear, right? It's not like an overwhelming anxiety or panic attack. It's more like this low-level kind of, I'd say a good fear, like an exciting fear, like, oh my God, if I let this go, like, I don't really know who I'm going to become. Because you're literally going to change on the identity level, right? Like I said, when we deal with it on the micro, we're getting to the core of the problem. So when you start to release things on that level, it creates an identity shift. And your identity and who you are now has helped you survive for your whole life, right? Otherwise, you wouldn't be here watching the video. The most powerful program we possess is the program for survival. So your organism doesn't want to change. So you're clinging to your problems because you're too scared to let them go. Your whole mind and body is, because it doesn't know what's going to happen. This is where you have to have a little bit of courage and just trust the process, right? And what you're going to find is the more you start to release and let it go, it's going to keep coming back up. And you're going to have this almost unconscious desire, let's call it, to experience that negative state again, right? Because you're attached to it. There's an attachment to it. And you have to see the attachment to it to free yourself. Until you see the attachment you've got to your suffering, you're not going to be able to let it go. You're attached to it. As crazy as it sounds, you're doing it yourself. Obviously, it's all happening unconsciously. And I hope this kind of helps you. I hope this actually empowers you. I think it's empowering, right? Versus feeling like you're just a victim of something you've got no control over, right? And even me telling you this isn't actually going to free you from it. You're going to have to do it yourself. You're going to have to see the attachment. You're going to have to see how you're clinging to it out of fear, probably, or some strong negative impulse. And then to let that go is going to be very scary. Another thing I've recognized, if you want more insights on this, is that if you let go of this problem, it means you're probably going to have to take more responsibility in your life. I think, and I'm starting to see in myself, we hide behind our problems, right? We hide behind them. Because if you had no problems, if you fix all your problems, you really shifted on that identity level, then you would really have to face your life fully and do all the things that you say you want to do and be, right? That's a whole nother level of fear. It is. It's a whole nother level, right? So it's more comfortable, it's safer for you to just cling to what you've got as much, even though it causes you so much problems and suffering and all of this, right? What's that phrase? Like, we stick to what we know. Because the unknown is terrifying. But I share these insights with you because I hope you can have them yourself, right? You have to have them yourself. What I tell you in this video is just, it's maybe giving you a path, a map almost, so you know the terrain a bit better of what you're dealing with when we're really trying to create deep level change, right? This is deeply unconscious stuff. We're really delving deeply into the psyche and seeing what's going on in there, seeing these attachments we've got, observing these patterns, and then realizing that there's healthier ways of being, and in that realization we can relinquish them. Okay? And that's where transformation occurs. Like I said, this is scary. I feel like I'm changing quite a lot, and I can't even imagine who I'm going to be in, say, 6 months, just from doing this simple practice. It's that powerful, right? If you really commit to it. So commit to it, right? It's so simple. Just choose that one thing that you're going to observe, you're going to journal about it, you're going to look for it in all aspects of your character, your personality, your behavior on all levels, and then see how it's not serving you, see how you're actually clinging to it and actually creating it. And then you're going to have the power to release it, right? And step into the unknown and really change. Okay, so I hope this video helps some of you out. If you did enjoy it, you've got anything to add, please consider giving the video a like, share, subscribe. Really helps me out. If you haven't already, remember to check out my book. I'll put a link down below. But until next time, remember to keep living free and being free. Peace.